My name is Marcus Lewis. I am going to be hosting this meeting. I also have joining us Quinn Furness, who is one of our, but he's also a former admissions officer, which is what I really tried to say here. I will do some of the talking here. I'll let Quinn take over in a little while as well. What we're going to talk about today is, as it says on the first slide here, we're going to talk about different summer programs, the kind of benefits for you as a student and a family in taking them. And then also what programs are worth going to, how to put together the application, and what to do the do's and don'ts of the application, and what they mean for your basically your college planning. So to start with, I'm going to just talk about the importance of summer programs. I also thought we should probably talk about what summer programs are, because it's kind of a vague term. So summer programs refer to basically things that we sometimes would call summer camps, although we don't mean camp in the sense of an outdoor event where you do archery and sports and things like that. Instead, it's more like an additional summer class that you would take. And the classes are usually conducted by universities or colleges in the area, or sometimes there's third-party offers that may be on a college campus. They may not be associated with a college directly as well. And they're essentially additional educational opportunities for students to take in the summer to have an additional skill at an advanced level. So summer programs are not required for college admissions, but they certainly, because college admissions officers like to see that students are using all of the time that they have available to them to get educational opportunities. Summer programs can also help a student develop themselves and their interests, and the most important thing for us is that they can be fun and rewarding. So defining top summer programs, there isn't exactly a clear definition on what makes a top summer program. Instead, they are, there's not like an outside ranking organization or anything like that, the way that US News and World Reports, for example, ranks colleges and universities. But that being said, there are more selective programs than others, and some are better known than others altogether. I'm going to turn over to Quinn here for a little bit to kind of talk about what top summer programs mean from an admissions officer's point of view. And I'm also going to try to fix my translation feature, which is apparently not on.
Thanks, Marcus. Well, I think I followed the same steps as you with the translation stuff, so someone will have to let me know if mine is not functioning properly either. Hi, everyone. My name is Quinn Furness, and I've been working with InAmerica for a number of years now. As a former admissions officer, I'm actually still an admissions officer, but I kind of give that insight to students from the perspective of someone who's actually physically, inside your application on an admissions committee, making recommendations to the dean for admissions. So I have a pretty good sense of, past successful applicants, and what, things they tend to have to make their files so successful in highly competitive admissions processes like Northwestern and Johns Hopkins, where I've worked in the past, which are very competitive schools. So Marcus gave us a great introduction to summer programs. The first thing I'll say is that, there are a million different types of summer programs. There's a ton of different ways to go about these things. They are not all the same. They cover different topics. They are taught by, different institutions, lots of colleges and universities, but not always. They are sometimes in person, sometimes virtual. Sometimes they're more focused on sitting in a classroom. Sometimes they're more focused on conducting research, right? So there's a ton of different angles and aspects going on with summer programs. And so I think that's really where, InAmerica can help you and your students really start to parse through these different programs and offerings, because we've seen them before. We've had students get into them before. We've researched them. So we've already invested all that time. And so we're happy to share what we've discovered with you. So when we think about summer programs, you see these 3 points that you have on the screen here, but, name brand recognition is very common in summer programs. You'll see a lot of colleges and universities that you might have heard of in the past, like, Northwestern has summer programs, Hopkins has summer programs, lots of Ivy League schools have summer programs, Stanford, Brown, right? These are all very common summer programs that lots of people have heard of because they know they're kind of host college, right? Those are oftentimes going to be good programs, but don't assume that just because something has the name that you've heard of attached to it, that it's the best fit for you, right? So, it's a good starting point for your research, but it's not the only thing that you want to be considering. With that in mind, you want to really dig in, and this is where we can really support you to focus on what is the program actually offering. You already mentioned that some programs they might just be like, oh, you're just going to be taking one class, and it's probably still going to be a great experience. It's good, but that's a different experience than if you wanted to do research for a month with a professor, right? You're not going to have the same experience if that's what you were looking for. So you really want to focus not just on, hey, what's the name of this, but actually on what is the program offering. And then, you'll be able to research in your research, and this is something that we can partner on you with to really figure out, what have past students' experience has been like. There's a good chance that if you're looking at a summer program, you're researching it, and you work with InAmerica, well, we've probably already had, a student or multiple students that have gone through that program, and we have a sense of, oh, it was more this type of program, or it covered this, but it didn't really cover that, right? So that's just kind of some general introductory stuff to summer programs. And I think I didn't put this on the screen, but speaking broadly as an admissions officer, the expectation when we're talking about ultra competitive schools like your Ivy League schools or your Stanfords or your U Chicagos is that students are doing something to sort of further their educational careers in the summers. That doesn't mean that your whole summer has to be spent just doing a summer program or 2 summer programs. We don't want you to commit your entire life to just doing those things, right? But the expectation that you have 3 summers as a high school student, so you really do want to make the most of those summers. And summer programs are oftentimes a already kind of well-established, built-out way of doing that. So we'll get into lots more of the specifics going forward, but that's kind of my general intro thoughts as an admissions officer.
Thanks, Quinn. I see a lot of good questions coming in the chat too. We will have a time for a Q&A at the end of this, but I will go through everything with you guys then too. I'm going to go through as it says here, not exhaustive list of some of the top summer programs, just to kind of piggyback on what Quinn said. One thing I want to just add to, because it's one of the top misconceptions that I hear as an admissions consultant, is that if you get into a summer program, that gives you a leg up on the college that you're applying. So I hear a lot of students say, well, I got into the NYU summer program, therefore I'm guaranteed to get into NYU as an undergrad. It does not work that way at all. Though the programs are affiliated with the schools in times, sometimes they're not. And regardless of even the ones that are very hands-on from the universities, they're totally separate organizations that do the admissions for both of them, although they model, or the summer programs kind of model themselves off of the college. So I'm going to go through a handful of these. Like I said, this is not at all a top list or the exclusive list. These are just programs in the United States that we hear a lot of that are generally well known enough so that if you put this on your resume, an admissions officer will know right away what these are. There are other programs that might be more regional or local to an area that are equally competitive and great, but might need an explanation. And there's also new programs every year, and some programs change depending on who's teaching there and so forth. So I have 4 kind of broad categories here. For liberal arts, so that refers to anything relating to like social studies, English, art history, things like that. And the 3 that I tend to get most interested in, let's say, the first is Telluride, which is a very unique summer program. It's totally free. No one pays for it at all. It's also the literal and most competitive program. They take very few people. And their focus is on issues of social justice and kind of activism. And I think that is why they don't take money, is because taking money for a program like that kind of goes against the mission of an activism or social justice. On the opposite end of the spectrum, we have some very expensive programs, but very good programs in the Yale Young Global Scholars and the Stanford Summer Humanities Institute. So Yale Young Global Scholars are what we'll usually call YYGS, has 3 cohorts each year for 4 categories. One of the categories is kind of similar to Telluride's. It's about kind of activism, but it's more of a political science focus. They also have a program on international business, and they also have some programs that will change from year to year on other kinds of history and environmental issues. And then at Stanford, there's the Summer Humanities Institute, which is an institute devoted to exactly like it might suggest in the title, humanities. So they have classes on art history, English, history, anything that relates to the humanities, which refers to the kind of some achievement of mankind in civilization's history. So it has a mix of art, culture, history, political science, and everything. On the business end of things, so going down, there's really two programs that stand out, although there's a number of really excellent business programs. But often for business students, we'll look for internships and things like that. So there's not as many business programs as there are liberal arts programs, but there are still some very good ones. So the top one here is Wharton Global Youth Program. They have a number of different subcategories. They have a academy on Moneyball, which is kind of like using advanced statistics. Technically, it's advanced statistics in sports, but the Moneyball program goes beyond sports as well. They have a finance class, which is very popular and very competitive. So something that's good for would-be investment bankers or Wall Street broker types. Wharton also has an entrepreneurship class, which is very popular. It teaches you how to do all the necessary business skills that you would need to start your own business. And then there's also LaunchX. LaunchX has various affiliations with various universities. The most recent one was at Michigan for part of the summer, and then another part was at NC State, so North Carolina State, although it worked also with some other schools in the area. There's what they call the Research Triangle in North Carolina, where there's a number of schools, NC State, Duke, UNC, Wake Forest. They all kind of work together. In any case, what LaunchX is a summer program devoted exclusively to entrepreneurship. So students learn the necessary tools of entrepreneurship. They learn how to set up a business, how to raise capital, how to get funding, and then they do a capstone project in which they create their own business pitch, raise money for it, and win prizes. Again, these are very well-known business programs. There are others as well. And then on the STEM front, so at the top right here, there are a lot of really good STEM programs. Some of the best ones are so competitive, I didn't even put them on here because they'll only take like 5 or 6 students because they're hands-on with professor. But of the kind of larger and better known ones, I have starting with the Ross Mathematics program, which is a program, as it might imagine, it's about advanced math classes. So students learn how to do advanced math programming, often with a computer science basis, but also sometimes not. There's also the NIH Summer Internship Program. So that's the National Institute of Health. And it is a summer program devoted to research science things. You get hands-on lab experience. It's, again, extremely competitive. It does shuffle around a little bit. And then there's Promise, which is, it's about program in mathematics for young scientists, which we usually call Promise by its acronym. But Promise is another kind of advanced math research group. Often, again, there's a computer science focus. In some cohorts, they'll make algorithms. In some cohorts, they do kind of just advanced math research. And then finally for arts, I'm going to put 2 here, but there are, again, a lot of really good ones. First is Interlochen, which is actually more like a summer camp than a lot of these programs are. So it's a camp devoted for musicians and some other things, but usually musicians. So you have to audition for it. It's one of the most well-known summer programs in the world for musicians. They boast that they have more people from Interlochen who go on to Juilliard, which is like the top music school in the country, than any place else. And then there's the Iowa Young Writers Studio, which is an excellent program for creative writers. The University of Iowa writing program for MFA is the most famous in the world. And the teachers of the Iowa Young Writers Studio are usually grad students at Iowa who are participating in that MFA program. That program really produces some of the best known writers in all of American fiction. So that's an excellent program. Again, extremely competitive. And again, I want to emphasize, as it says at the top, this is not an exhaustive list of all the top summer programs. It's just some of the ones that we know best. So moving on, I want to turn to Quinn again for some more thoughts from him on these top programs.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Marcus. And going back to thinking about, there's so many different summer programs. We just looked at a couple of them, but it's just a drop in the bucket compared to how many there actually are going on here every year, every summer. So the first thing you really want to do is think about I encourage students to really think about me and in my goals first. Like, what do I want to accomplish? What would I like to achieve as a student over the summer? How do I want to grow? Is there maybe a specific subject or skill set that I want to learn more about or grow more in? What is my actual reason for attending a summer program? It shouldn't just be, oh, this will look good on my college application. That will be one of the nice bonuses of it, right? But you shouldn't just be trying to rack up as many summer programs as possible to make your resume look better. So really understand each one of these programs. Think about, what do they actually offer? What am I actually going to be doing there? Is it more class focused, research oriented? Is there like a travel component, right? Like, what are the different things going on in these summer programs? And think about, how does that actually match with my goals or my values? It's not the end of the world if you go to a summer program and it's not exactly a perfect fit. It doesn't align exactly with what you were hoping to accomplish, because you still learned something about yourself. You learned that whatever it is, that didn't maybe work as well at that summer program for you, well, that's something that you can, maybe try to avoid moving forward then, right? So there's still value in maybe if something isn't the perfect fit for you, but you want to try to research as much as possible. And that's something that we can really help you with as you're going through this process, to really help you, because we've been here before. We've been in this industry for a while, so we know what these summer programs cover, what they offer. I mentioned like the travel piece. Hey, where are these programs located? Just on the previous screen that Marcus was taking you through, there was a wide array of different geographical locations, and those different locations sometimes will offer you different things. So if you go to a camp like Interlochen, for example, which I personally haven't been to, but my understanding is it's more kind of rural Michigan. I think it's still a nice area, but it's not like, hey, you're going to Manhattan, there's a million other things that you can do, right? It's like the focus of what you're doing in that space is that camp, and it's still a great experience, right? But that's the prime thing. Whereas, hey, if you go to an in-person summer program at Columbia, let's say, right, you're in the middle of the largest city in the country. It's a great program. There's also a million other things. There might be other opportunities that are opened up for you depending on you and what you're looking for. So really do consider that. Summer in the United States is going to be, hopefully pretty nice regardless of where you go, but maybe you really don't like intense heat. Okay, so let's not go down to South Florida or Texas for a summer program, right? If you're going to be spending a lot of time outside. So that is a consideration, because as you're probably pretty aware, the US has a wide array of locations, climates, all that sort of stuff. So really, that might come into play for you as you're thinking about it. And then, this is just pretty straightforward, hopefully obvious advice, but we talk about college applications all the time and proofreading your essays and having other people read them and your materials and all that fun stuff. Same goes for these summer programs. As Marcus was alluding to, some of these are extremely competitive. I've had students who are just some of my top students of all time. They're fantastic. They end up getting into great colleges. And it's not like, oh yeah, they can go get into any summer program they want. These things are very, very competitive, sometimes like single digit acceptance rates. It's similar to like trying to go to an Ivy League college, right? So you really want to invest the time, make sure everything is right, make sure you don't have errors on your application. And so that's obviously something that InAmerica really helps our students with is proofreading all these materials, making sure everything aligns, helping out with the strategy. So that's probably pretty obvious advice, right? Proofread your stuff, but I see a lot of students ignore it, and that definitely hurts them in their application. So these are some additional thoughts that I have about some of your summer programs, Marcus.
Great, thanks, Quinn. Yeah, I'd also add on the proofread thing. You would be surprised at how many simple mistakes people will put into these things. I remember multiple years ago, I had a student who insisted that they did everything right, and then didn't understand why they got into the program. And I looked at their application, and it was an application for Wharton, and they had forgotten to change YYGS to Wharton in the little statement that they wrote, which obviously was not good for Wharton people. Anyway. So I have some do's and don'ts here. A lot of these are things that we definitely help you with, as Quinn just mentioned. Some of them are repetitive, some I kind of move past these a little bit. As Quinn already mentioned, we want to know which program is right for you. I would just kind of piggyback a little bit on what Quinn was mentioning about geographic location. Especially if you're coming from China, you need to pay attention to where in the United States something is just for international flights. So like Interlochen example is in a remote part of Michigan. It's a little bit hard to get to if you're coming from like Beijing. You have to fly to maybe Detroit, and they'll have some transportation from the airport, but it's definitely more complicated than going to a summer program at UCLA's campus in Los Angeles, where you can get a direct flight from Beijing or Shanghai. In any case, you want to be yourself in your essays. So one of the questions I get asked a lot about these is like, what is the formula for writing this stuff, right? What are they looking for? And there are profiles of students that these programs want. So if it's a business program, they don't want students who are only STEM majors, right? Or would be STEM majors. If it's a creative writing program, you need to have a portfolio of writing that you can prove. But that all being said, you want to be yourself in your essays. One of the things that we do a lot of here is spend a lot of time crafting these essays with students. So we'll meet and kind of do a brainstorm session, have a student write it, and then really spend weeks and weeks and weeks shaping these things into perfection, while also making sure to capture a student's actual natural voice. You also want to organize your resume and activities. For younger students, and I saw a question, for example, in the chat about if there are programs open for 6th graders. Yeah, there are a few that are open for middle school students, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. A student at that age is not likely to have as full of a resume as a rising senior would. So this might be the first chance to make the resume, but it's a good opportunity because you need a resume later in life. If you're entering this as a 10th or 11th grader, hopefully you have a resume by that point. But if you don't, again, now's a good time to make it. Some of the better programs or more competitive programs will require a letter of recommendation, or if not that, they often have a form that's called a teacher evaluation form, which will be a questionnaire that your teacher has to fill out about how you are in class, what kind of thinker you are you punctual, what kind of writer you are. Those are requirements, and you want to make sure to ask for them as early as possible. The worst thing you can do, I'm a former teacher myself, and as a teacher, the worst thing you can do is pile on work for them at the last second and say, hey, I need a letter recommendation by tomorrow. So try to get that in early and make sure that the person who's recommending you is a person who knows you well and will write good things. You should apply early and with backup that should say plans. One of the best things I would note, or one of the best pieces of advice I would give rather, when there are certain programs like YYGS and LaunchX that have early decision deadlines, just like a university or college does. And there's a statistical advantage to having the application in early. They will, in some cases, triple or quadruple your percentage of possibility of getting in. Even the programs that don't have that huge benefit for early decision or early action, you still want to apply early because the ones that don't have that still have a finite number of spaces. And they don't always wait until the application deadline to evaluate. So they'll start filling out if let's say that the deadline is May 1st, but they get an application in January or February and they give you the slot, that means that that's one fewer spot available at the May 1st deadline. When we get to colleges and universities, and we look at those deadlines, which are also coming up, schools will wait until after the deadline to actually evaluate all the students. Summer programs won't do that. It's a first in the door, first in the spot form too. Couple of don'ts. So I already mentioned this. Summer program admissions do not equal college admissions. You get into Stanford in high school, fantastic. That's great. I hope you have a wonderful time there. Hopefully that helps you get into Stanford later on. It doesn't directly though. It won't make any difference. And then the other big things, as Quinn already mentioned, we don't want to hand in anything sloppy or missing any pieces of information. Again, that's where we would help you out a lot, is we will use a checklist with you and make sure that every piece of information is A, 100% accurate, and B, also in application. More tips from Quinn.
Great. Thanks, Marcus. And I don't think anything that I have on this slide is particularly new or crazy, shocking information for everyone. So kind of just a summary of lots of things we've already shared and lots of things that Marcus has already touched on. So as a reminder, spend the time, invest the time to really research these programs. Largely, you can just do that, online through reading the materials. But maybe your high school counselor has students who've gone to that program in the past, right? They might know students. Certainly, when you work with InAmerica, there's a good chance that we have connections to students who've pursued those programs in the past. And so we can counsel you on, oh, they cover more of this angle. If you were looking for more of a research thing, maybe let's check out this program instead, because this one's not going to really get you your hands on that type of activity, right? So conducting that research and planning this stuff in advance is really smart. Definitely spending your time on your application materials. This isn't something where you just want to kind of whip up an essay in 20, 25 minutes and just quickly answer the questions, fill it out, and then boom, submit it, right? You want to be patient. You want to be calculated. You want to take your time, making sure that you're, just like when you get to college applications, making sure your summer program application tells the whole story of you and why you specifically are interested and how you're going to help or how this program is going to help you in whatever it is you're trying to accomplish as a student that upcoming summer. Definitely reflect on, I mentioned this already, but reflect on your own goals, your own passion, your own vision. I think it can be really easy as a high school student to just kind of be like, oh, my counselor said do this, or my mom said do this, or my older brother did this when he was my age, so I'm just going to do this. And I get that. I totally understand that. But take the time to really think about you and what you want to accomplish. What would you like to get out of this summer program? Because there's a lot of different summer programs, and maybe they're all backed by Ivy League schools, but even within that, they're going to cover a lot of different ground, a lot of different types of subjects and topics, and they'll approach them differently. So really do spend some time thinking about what's most important to you. And then Marcus just went through all of this, so I'm not going to rehash it, but plan early for this stuff. Don't wait until the deadline. The deadline is not something that it should be for you, like, oh, it says April 1st, so that means on April 1st I should submit things. No, that's not how this goes. Marcus was spot on when he was talking about what I call rolling admissions, meaning they're just going to take in applications and review them and churn out decisions once they receive them. They're not going to just wait until a certain date where everyone's gotten their apps in and now we're going to, as a big kind of group, release the decisions. That's not typically how summer programs do these things. So applying early, planning early can really help you out. And then just, two don'ts. Don't, just latch on to a summer program, or don't only apply to summer programs where you've heard their like host institutions. So I think most of us here have heard of Stanford. Most of us have heard of Yale. They offer some really fantastic programs, but you shouldn't just apply to them because I've heard of those and I haven't heard of this other one that might be in Tennessee, but might be a much better fit for me and my goals and what I hope to accomplish, right? So you won't know that until you actually spend the time talking to people, researching. So I encourage you to do that. And then Marcus got to this when he was talking about the Wharton application, but don't just blindly recycle your materials when you apply for one summer program and then you want to apply to another one. Hey, there's a good chance we can pretty much reuse the same, personal statement, for example, if the prompt is exactly the same, but we still want to personalize these things to the individual programs we're applying to. And so you should never just blindly say, oh, this was my personal statement for Yale, so this is going to be my personal statement for the Brown summer program. Like, you got to get in there, you got to look, you got to proofread, you got to personalize it to that program you're applying to. So that's, just general advice, like life advice that'll be good for college applications too, but it starts with your summer program applications as well. So I don't think any of that was super new, but just some key thoughts to think about when you're preparing for summer programs.
Great. Yeah. Just to reiterate, so the key word here is early. Right. So the programs themselves don't always update their websites until we get to December or January. Unfortunately, a lot of the more competitive ones, though, updated basically as soon as summer ended. So you could literally start those applications today for the ones that are available. But again, kind of final point of this, I just want to reiterate a few big things that actually one of them I didn't even say yet, but I should have said. There's not one right summer program, right? There isn't one summer program that unlocks, I don't know, some sort of magic door that opens up to all the opportunities in the world. Each program is different for each person. So, a student who really likes LaunchX might hate Wharton. A student who really likes Ross might hate Promise, right? Or they might love both. It just kind of depends on the student. The biggest thing I would mention for this, so when we talk about what the kind of benefits of these are, Yes, there's a line on your resume that, especially for some of these programs, is a very impressive line on your resume, right? It's a nice quantitative and to a point qualitative aspect of your application for colleges. That's an easy to explain activity that we can put on the Common App and be proud of. But I don't want you all to think that this is the goal of these summer programs, right? The main goal is to actually get something out of the program itself. There's a lot of work to get into these programs. There's a lot of work just to physically get to the programs, and there's a lot of work once you're in the programs. So I don't want it to just be this thing that you're doing for some unknown future goal of applying to a college. This should be fun. It's supposed to be a rewarding experience. You're supposed to, and the students that I've had who've liked certain programs like YYGS or Wharton or Ross, they come back really excited about something. They learned something fascinating that they want to share with their classmates and even with me, their consultant. They had a great experience working with a professor or a graduate student who really taught them new things and opened up new doors. That's what we're really hoping for a summer program, is something that actually is an educational, fun, rewarding experience where you're making friends and making memories of your life, not just some slog of a task that you're trying to get through so that you can have one nice thing on your resume. I'll turn it to Quinn for his final thoughts, and then we'll open up to some Q&A too.
Yeah, thanks, Marcus. So as a reminder, you're a high school student from the time you start high school to the time you're applying to colleges. You only have 3 summers. So they go by quick, and you want to make the most of them. So again, I'm not someone who's going to sit here and say you have to do 2 summer programs every single summer. That has to be what you do. You can't have any fun. That's not what we're saying. You just want to be strategic. You want, like anything in life, you want to have a nice balance. So you want to do some of those maybe more academic things that are going to push you and help you grow and help you advance, but you want to have time because it's your summer break to do fun things as well. So being busy is okay, as long as you're doing things that you like to do. So you want to make the most of those summers, but finding a nice balance is important. Oftentimes as you get older, the kind of focus of the summer programs you're looking for changes. And I'm thinking specifically through the lens of preparing for college applications. So maybe it's your first summer, you just finished your 9th grade year. You're just kind of getting, your feet wet. You're getting your first experience with summer programs. You're maybe just taking something where it's just like, okay, I'm just in a classroom. Maybe I'm trying to get ahead in math class or something. So my summer program might entail me taking pre-calculus over the summer so that I'm ready for whatever it might be in 10th grade, or maybe you took algebra 2 over the summer, so you're ready for, pre-calculus in 10th grade, right? So, but as you get older, oftentimes you want to really kind of ramp up the summer program experience so that it's not just, hey, I took this one class over the summer, but it's more of, I worked closely with a professor. I was part of this research intensive program. I got to collaborate closely with other students. And at the end of the day, I have like a completed research paper or project or something that I can actually, something that's tangible that I can really write about and show on my college application in the future. So I'm not saying you have to like follow that progression, but that's oftentimes what I see successful students do as they get older. The summer programs they participate in get a little bit more hands-on, a little bit more intensive. And then finally, don't overlook this human aspect. Summer programs can be really good opportunities to meet other friends, people who have like-minded interests, and you might, learn about people from all over the world, because people do come from all over the world to participate in these programs. And just as importantly, and I think I saw a question about this in the chat, you might get some dynamite or some great letters of recommendation out of these summer programs, especially if you're doing like a close research project with a professor for a month or something. If you're building that relationship, if you're investing time in that person, and you're doing a good job with what's being asked of you, there's a good chance you're going to get a fantastic letter of recommendation in that summer program. So I'd definitely encourage you to, invest the time in the people, invest the time in making friends, invest the time in whomever it is you're working with, because those can lead to other things down the line. Maybe you want to do a research project during the school year. Maybe the professor you met, over the summer has an opening for a high school student, something that you could take advantage of. So it always helps to network, to, put yourself out there, to invest time in other people. So that's something else that you get access to by attending some of these summer programs.
Okay, so I'm going to answer some of these questions that we've seen in the chat and from before. So I'll answer some of them. I'll ask Quinn some of them to answer as well. So the first one, I've seen this come up a couple times. It's if I choose to attend summer school and later that's not suitable for me, will this experience still be beneficial for my college application? So my read on that is yes, because it's not like colleges expect you to come out of 8th grade as a fully formed person who has a direct and clear path. But Quinn, what do you think if the student has sort of changed directions from maybe a STEM program to something else later on?
Yeah, there's still value in it, right? It's maybe not going to like be as strong of a single narrative as maybe the person who always knew they wanted to do public health, and so they've done public health every single summer, and it's okay. Like, not everyone is going to have a completely perfect linear progression, and admissions officers are humans. They understand that. They're not expecting every single student to know exactly what they wanted to do when they started 9th grade year and still be doing that. We see students at our colleges change their majors all the time, and so it's not like, oh, you get to college and then now you know what you want to do. Like, people still change. So I think the important thing is that there are still going to be skills, there's still going to be things that you can take away from these programs, experiences that are valuable. And so focusing on what you got out of it that was actually valuable, and then being able to write and reflect on, okay, how's that going to help me in the future? Like, what do I know now that I didn't know before? How does that make me stronger in the future because of that experience? So it's not a bad thing. It's not a negative thing. It's just part of life. You'll learn, you'll grow, you'll try things you like, try things you don't like. It's just the ability to take things away from it and be able to reflect on it effectively, and you'll be okay.
There's another one. This is a really simple question that I will field for this, but it's the question is, what are the language requirements for top level summer schools? So they do vary. I will note there are a number of really good top summer programs in China as well. I didn't cover those because, in part, I don't know them as well, since I don't speak Chinese, as anyone hearing my marketing presentation today can tell. But at the same time, the language requirements usually are you either need to have taken classes at a school in which the majority of instruction is in English language. So if you go to like the American school in Shanghai, or an international school, or an IB program, or if you're in school in Hong Kong or Singapore, typically you'll be fine. Otherwise, you may have to take either a junior level TOEFL or a Duolingo exam, or another type of English language exam. School that indicates that you can handle the curriculum English. So pretty minimal. We can help prepare you for all that as well. The second question, or I guess third question, is it better to attend summer more frequently? Which I'm going to kind of rephrase is, I think, is it better to attend summer school not every summer, but is it better to attend a summer program more than once in the summer? And what do you think, Quinn?
I think you shouldn't feel pressured or compelled to like do as many as possible to look good for a college application. You should, treat every summer as its own summer, and the time will go quickly. For most students, it's only 3 months, give or take, is your summer break, and there's probably a lot of things you want to accomplish or do other than just doing a summer program or multiple summer programs. So you really want to work with whomever it is sort of on your team, right? Your parents, your siblings, whomever supports you, your counselors, InAmerica, well in advance of the summer, to really game plan. Okay, what are we going to do? What's the time like? Do we have like a family trip planned that's going to be this week? We can't do a summer program during that week, right? Like, you want to game plan that stuff beforehand. And then thinking about the number of summer programs, I mean, I see some students do, 0, some students do 1, some students do 2. I don't know if I've ever seen a student like pull off 3 completely different ones. I'm sure it's happened. I just haven't seen it recently, but you shouldn't feel compelled to do more just because more is better. I think if you can find one that is, a really good fit and suits your needs well, awesome. But maybe it's only 1 week. That's, that's not uncommon for summer programs. In that case, okay, maybe there's a second one that fits in your schedule, or maybe there's one that's in person. You're going to kind of do that in-person experience, and then there's one that's online later on or before that, works with your needs as well. So you can be flexible. That's, something coming out of the pandemic. Schools have really increased their virtual offerings. And I think there was another question about virtual programs. They can be really solid. It's just a different experience, right? I think everyone's here probably had classes that are in person, and everyone's here probably experienced classes that are virtual, right? And you probably know that, yeah, it can be good or bad either way. You kind of have to know sort of your own learning style and what works best for you. Some students just don't respond well to online classes at all. In that case, you probably don't want to spend a ton of money doing an online summer program, right? It's just kind of hopefully common sense. So every student's going to have a different case. Every student's going to have a different plan for their summer. I think, if it's just like, oh, I'm not doing anything, like taking 3 months off, that's when I'm like, okay, well, maybe there's a summer program we could try out that, fills some time. But don't feel like, oh, I gotta get a second one in, but my schedule doesn't allow for it. Like, don't get too freaked out over something like that. It's going to be okay. So every student's going to be a little bit different.
Great. Yeah, I'd also just add on the online class, because I've seen it, I think 3 times in the chat too. So colleges know that there's travel components to these programs, so they will not judge you as some sort of a lesser candidate or lesser person because you couldn't afford to or didn't have the time to fly all the way to Connecticut to go to Yale. Right. I mean, that adds up. It's also just difficult logistically. And I also would just note, some of the online programs are actually very good. Some of them are like at University of California has one, for example, and NYU does, where the summer program isn't really even a summer program. It's that you literally take college level courses as a high school student, which looks great because it shows that you are already competing or participating in college level curriculum, which means you can definitely thrive in the university. And some of those classes that they offer are online. So it can actually be as rewarding as being in college physically. Let's see, I think the other questions, there's 2 more that I want to go through and what we can call it. So one of the questions that I see is, which summer schools do not require? And there's a couple of ways that I could question. So in the application part of it, which is the part that we're talking about a little bit today, at least. Basically, the more competitive the program, the more requirements there are in the application, which means they're all going to require a lot of time. You can basically fill out a form and get into, and there are a number of ones that can still be rewarding. They're just not in that competitive way that we were talking about today. So the time for the actual program. Each of the programs varies in length. So some of them are all summer, they're more consuming. Example, like programs, NIH. Some programs are as short as a week. So even at like Wharton and YYGS, they have different modules or different cohorts. One might be a week, one might be 3 weeks, one might be 2 weeks. So we can kind of plan around that. So basically the best thing to do is kind of know what your summer is going to look like, how much time you're going to be at home, how much time you're going to be traveling, how much time do you have for these programs, and we can try to find one that fits your exact schedule. And then the final question that we'd ask is a really simple one for both Quinn and me to answer, which is, do you provide assistance with the application process for summer schools? And yeah, absolutely. That is one of the biggest things that we do at this time of year. We have, I can personally say I've worked on probably hundreds of these over my career. Quinn has probably also done near hundreds of them. At this time of year, one of the things we would do is meet with you, talk about your specific goals and needs, provide a list of some opportunities for you, make a strategy just like we do for colleges based on higher end and kind of more competitive to what we'd call more like likelies, just to give you something to fill up your goal and then we'll mention every aspect of the application. So writing the essay, polishing the essay, helping you get the letters of recommendation, filling out the forms, answering all the little small questions, providing writing samples and all that. That's all I wanted to say this morning or this evening in China. Quinn, do you have anything you want to add before we shut it down here?
No, I don't think so. This was, very hopefully helpful for you all. We tried to be comprehensive. Just remember, summer programs are not, they're not super simple or straightforward. Like there's a lot of different strategy that can go into how you apply to them, how you choose which ones you want to attend, how they fit into sort of your high school, kind of portfolio. So, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of dedication. It's not quite as intense as your college applications, no, but you still want to take it very seriously. They can be really helpful. And then, my closing thought is just, there's not this clear tier list of, okay, this program is the top one, so everyone should try to get into this one. The same with colleges and universities, right? There are different schools, different programs, they offer different things, they approach them differently. So spending time to research, what you're looking to get out of a program and what a program offers you is going to be way more fruitful than just saying, oh, I've heard of this school that offers this program, so I want to go there. That's not the only thing that you should be considering when you're researching. So I appreciate everyone in your questions in the chat and everything. Hopefully I never got any comments on the Zoom caption, so I hope that it worked. I've never used it before, so it's new for me, but I don't have any other thoughts. Thanks, Marcus.
Yeah, apologies on my end too if they didn't end up going through. We have not used this before either. But yeah, if you have any other questions that we didn't answer, reach out to us either on our WeChat channel or our official website. Our colleagues just put it in the meeting chat so you can see the specific links. And hopefully we'll hear from you and see you guys again in the future. Have a good night, everyone.